Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole. Let's talk about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I wanna know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about. Let's talk about. Yeah. Let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
Greetings. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I am Nicole Everett, your host, and Conversations with Nicole is a talk show based in Tallahassee, Florida, focused on connecting the community through conversations. And today is what I call Wellness Wednesday, which is an opportunity for you and me and my guests to talk about whatever it is we want to talk about. October. Look, I'm rushing it. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so our topic tonight is professional Black women in domestic violence. We recognize that domestic violence is not a respecter of persons. The women that are my guests tonight are survivors. I call them survivors of domestic violence. And so I am super excited and delighted to have my guests here with me tonight. But before I bring them on, I want to hear from you. And some of you have already been chiming in the broadcast starting, which I appreciate it. I love it. I love the enthusiasm. I want to hear from you though, if you will, in the comments, put your city and state so we can give you a shout out. I had a little issue with Facebook doing a direct post from the platform that I utilize. So I posted the YouTube link on the Facebook page. So we're not really live on Facebook technically, but we are definitely on YouTube. So I appreciate you all for being here tonight. So MK, I can't wait for this to start. These women are amazing. Thank you for doing what you do and being the voice for so many women who are being silenced. Our pleasure. We are so happy to be here and glad that you are with us tonight as well. We got Miss Princess on. Thank you for being here, Princess. Long time no see. I see my mom is on from the MIA. Thank you for being here, Ma. I appreciate you. Love you. We got Angel Ferguson. I'm tuned in and ready to hear. Awesome. This is absolutely interactive, so we welcome your comments, your questions throughout the evening. All right, MK is in Tallahassee. Thank you. And we got Mr. Ozzy Daniel. Where you been, Ozzy? We missed you. Live from Virginia Beach, Virginia. We appreciate you so much. We got Cheryl R in Pembroke Pines, Florida. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you. So for those of you who are new to the platform, I definitely invite you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are here on Mondays and Wednesdays at 8:30. Our focus is primarily on mental health and wellness in Black and Brown communities and trying to encourage us to get our check up from the neck up. So y'all, it's been a great day here in Tallahassee, but I'm in the midst of FAMU homecoming. Okay, today is Orange Day, and I'm gonna stand up for a minute. I got my orange on, yes, and so we are supporting those Rattlers for homecoming. I think they play Prairie View for homecoming, if I'm not mistaken. So we are looking forward to a great game this weekend. It's been a great week so far. Lots of activities, lots of excitement, and all of the things. So at any rate, I see we do have some other folks that are joining us. Nicole Moses in Mascot, Florida. Or maybe I'm not familiar with that, but thank you for being here. And Sherry from Opelika and Edwina Adams from North Carolina. Wonderful. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. All right. So my guests tonight are Dr. Iris Pendleton and Tangela Chipman. However, Tangela is actually traveling, and so she hasn't joined us just yet. She does have the link, so I'm hoping she will join us any minute now. But I am going to go ahead and read Iris's bio, introduce you to her. Iris Pendleton is a wife and mother of two boys. She has earned a BS and MS and PhD from the Florida State University. Go Noles. Iris is an assistant professor at a community college. Her current career work includes serving as a blog writer for Now I Can Wear Pink and Break the Silence Against Domestic Violence. Iris also volunteers as a domestic violence advocate for the Domestic Violence Coordinating Council in her local community. In her spare time, she enjoys going to the beach, reading, spending time with her family, and performing spoken word poetry. Y'all help me welcome Dr. Iris Pendleton. Yay! You're muted. There we go. All
Wonderful.
right. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I see that you are wearing your orange. I told Nicole I had on orange earlier for Orange
Yes.
Day, but since I'm representing Now I Can Wear Pink, I
And,
decided to come with all my pink tonight.
and you look quite pretty in your pink.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about Iris. Not so much what you do, but tell us who are you?
Ooh, so am, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I am a sister and a teacher.
Mhm.
And I love to dance. Like, I totally love going out dancing and doing karaoke. I love wearing all kinds of colors, including pink. Love
Nice.
fashion. So I'm kind of a colorful person, I guess I could say.
That's look wonderful. I love color as well, and definitely we should embrace colors. And I think sometimes as African American women, maybe we have been told that you know sometimes our colors can be a little too loud, but it's okay. We need to embrace all of that, all of that.
Mhm.
So I think we got Miss Tangela on the line. So I am going to go ahead and read her bio. Tangela Chipman, a native of Miami, Florida, retired from the Miami-Dade Police Department after serving the force for 26 years. During her tenure with the Miami-Dade PD, she worked as an investigator with the Special Victims Bureau for 16 years, investigating domestic violence, child abuse, neglect, and sexual battery. Tangela holds a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and a master's degree in socialization, specializing in domestic violence. Tangela's passion for domestic violence and her goal to bring knowledge and awareness have led her to be a voice within communities. Tangela served as president of the National Black Police Association, Miami-Dade chapter from 2011 to 2014, and she is also an Alpha Kappa Alpha Incorporated member. Y'all help me welcome Miss Tangela Chipman.
Good
Yay!
evening, and
Good
I that I
evening.
make
Yes, ma'am. We are glad you made it as well. So Tangela, I am going to also ask you the same question, which is who are you? Not what you do, but tell us a little bit more about who you are.
well. I am a mother of two beautiful daughters, and I also have four grandchildren.
Mhm.
I am a person who enjoy reading. I also enjoy in my spare time, just kind of like doing whatever I can to just keep my mind at ease, whether if it's just meditating or reading and focusing on my spiritual growth, things of that nature. Not really one to um, do a whole lot, but my sorority really keeps me busy,
Yeah.
and of course, that puts in a lot of work, for us to be able to do things. So we're always doing something, and it's always about serving mankind and being a part within the community. So, other than my family and my sorority and my spare time of doing what I want to do for me, that's who I am.
Well, listen, after 26 years of service with the police department, you deserve it.
Thank you.
You deserve it. You deserve it because I'm sure you that was not an easy task. Uh-oh, did we lose you? All right.
Yeah.
We may have a little bit of technical issue, but that's okay. We're gonna push right through.
Okay.
So this topic, of course, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and both you ladies, I've heard your stories individually, and have been quite intrigued by it. And I think it was when I was talking to Iris that it kind of just dawned on me that sometimes we think, especially of a professional Black woman, when I say professional, degreed or having a certain amount of what would be looked upon as status, that they would not allow something like domestic violence to occur or happen to them, right? And
Yeah.
so, just to give our viewers just a little bit of background in terms of why we even came up with this topic of discussion, and that is because of both of your lived experience.
Yeah.
So, if you don't mind, and I'm gonna start with you, Tangela, if you could share just a little bit about your lived experience and sheds a little bit of light on how maybe because of your profession and the path that you were going down in terms of your vocation, how maybe that may have people may have thought you didn't need any help.
Well, my situation started very young. I was about, I would say about 19. And at that time, I was not into law enforcement at all. Okay.
Mhm,
But at the same time, I was interested in the criminal justice system. Mine was my husband at the time, okay, who was my boyfriend at a very young age, at the age of 17. And this happened over a period of, I would say, over a 9 year period span between the dating and then between the marriage.
mhm,
The situation, and many times it makes you believe, and back then, you got to remember, we're talking many, many years ago. Okay. We're talking maybe I would say 78, 79,
mm,
back in that area when it was not talked about. Okay. It
mhm,
was not talked about. It was a hush hush kind of thing. And if you had a problem, that problem as a woman, you were very adamant to speak to anyone or to voice and to say, because of being afraid of being judged or thinking that you were a part of why this was occurring. Okay. So fast forward, got through that.
mhm.
Okay. Took many, many years. Just because you get out of it,
Right.
still you have that trauma. As I got into law enforcement and I became a detective in a domestic violence bureau, I
Mhm,
stayed the period for as long as I did because I felt that I could make a difference. And when I had a victim say to me, "You don't understand," I could truly look them in the eye and say, "I do understand,"
yeah.
because I was a victim.
Mm,
And I'm going to pose the question. The thing is, what does a victim look like? And that's where we have that problem, is the stigma, thinking a victim looks a certain way, has a certain type of status, low economic, none of that, all those are myths. But we'll get into all that later, I'm sure.
mhm.
But I stayed there because of the passion. And I
Gotcha.
figured if I can make a difference in one woman's life and explain to help her to get out of a situation,
Mhm.
figure what I have done is, because you can't save everyone,
Right.
but you can bring awareness to everyone.
Indeed, indeed. No, very good point. And thank you for sharing that. So, Iris, I want you to share a little bit of your story if you don't mind.
Okay, so sharing my story, I think I would have to begin with July the 25th, 2000.
Mm,
So we were in the midst of COVID at that time. And for a lot of people, the COVID year just felt like a year of loss. It felt like a year of setback. But for me, that's the day I call my Freedom Day. And it's a day that I celebrate. But that's also a day that I almost lost my life
mm,
after being in an abusive relationship for nearly 2 decades.
wow.
The abuser actually strangled me, and my
Mm,
children were watching. And I'll never forget the look on their faces. They looked helpless. And in that moment, I thought I was going to die. And it was so interesting. During that almost 2 decade relationship, I kept trying to find a reason to leave. Although the abuse was present throughout, there was physical, emotional, verbal, financial, every kind of abuse was there.
mhm,
Um, but it was really hard for me to leave because I had 2 children with the person, and the person was experiencing some difficult life circumstances.
mhm,
And as a Christian, I found myself feeling like I just needed a real reason to leave. And I'll never forget that day as he was strangling me.
mm,
So it's like something in my spirit broke and said, "Now you can leave."
wow.
And I remember realizing that day, this is it. I have to leave. And I truly feel like if I had not left that day, I may have not had another opportunity. And so I start there with my story because I feel like that is my Freedom Day. I think for a lot of people, they would see it as a negative event. And yes, it was negative, but I have chosen to look at it as the day that I got my freedom. And the last 3 years, I've actually been celebrating that day as my Freedom Day. Like I'll take a trip, I will do something special for myself. And so that is just a piece of my story that it's almost like that moment in that relationship captures that 2 decades almost because the relationship started with abuse and it ended that way as well.
Mm,
Yes.
wow. Whew. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm so glad that you got out and you are here to share your story with all of us. Um,
Thanks.
so tell us a little bit about Now I Can Wear Pink.
So now I can wear pink. Actually, it started based on journal entries that I did, even dating back to when I was in the abusive relationship. So I can remember in that relationship things would happen and the abuser would also always say, "Oh, I didn't say that," or "That's not what I did," or "You misunderstood it." And so one day I got this idea to start actually keeping a journal of what I was experiencing and writing down what I was going through. And I started keeping a journal back in 2019. And so I still continue to journal even today. And so, probably about a year ago, I got this thought to go back and start looking at some of those journals that I had written during the time I was experiencing the abuse.
Mm,
And as a Christian, I've been praying a lot. And so I feel like God asked me to share my story. And at first, I really didn't want to be honest. I really was not quite ready to tell the world what I'd been through, but I felt in my heart and in my spirit that God wanted me to share this with others. And so I started, at first, I started just sharing some of the journal entries that I had written during the time I was in the abusive relationship and put that into the blog. And now I share a variety of things and I try to share things to let people know what the experience is like if you're in an abusive relationship. But I also try to provide them with some hope by sharing some of the details of my life today and relating it back to what I went through. So it's a part of my story.
yeah. No, that's great. I think sometimes we don't recognize that, something as simple as journaling can help us get through some difficult times, right? So those coping skills are very, very important.
Yes.
Yes. So Tangela, you mentioned something about, your work and your ability to be able to relate with the victims of domestic violence, and people would say to you, you can't relate to this, and probably look at you and say, because you are an officer or what have you, you know that would never happen to you. And then your question is, what does a victim look like? Which I think is so powerful, right? Because that question causes me to think about, like, this issue of domestic violence, family violence, is no respecter of persons, right? It's not because you have a degree, you are exempt from being involved in issue, a domestic violence issue, right?
Yes.
Hmm. So expound upon that a little bit.
Well, when we look at what does a victim look like, and I say that because many times there's so many myths and disbeliefs of what has been placed upon society of this type of situation.
Hmm.
And a victim looks like me, it looks like you, they look like Iris. They it doesn't matter your status, your profession, what type of position you may hold. No one is exempt. You just said that. No one is exempt from domestic violence. So
Hmm.
when I think about it, it allowed me to really have the compassion for those women that I came in contact with as law enforcement. Because
Hmm.
many in law enforcement, you have to understand, we have repeat calls. We go back to the same call over and over again, many times of domestic violence calls, because as Iris can tell you, it's a repeat occurrence of events. It's not a one time isolated incident. And
Hmm.
if someone does not have an understanding or even the compassion, they make it, well, why are we here again? This is saying she's not going to leave. She's still here. And the victim then begins to feel less of an importance, because when law enforcement responds, they may not have the compassion. And so now the victims withdraw back and they don't really want to say or tell what is happening, because we are the first responders to get there. Okay, I'm using my first responder,
Right.
and you get there, you see this victim. So if you're going to this home over and over and over again, I understand why a woman goes back. They say what, 7 times, right, before she leaves. Okay, it happened. I don't know how many times I went back, but I did. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and go to a residence, if you've been there that many times as a law enforcement and you don't really understand the dynamics of being a victim of domestic violence, you're going to think this woman is either something's wrong. I'm just going to be honest. She's stupid. She's crazy. And
Hmm.
they don't have the compassion for the victim to even really want to even just take the time to even console her
Mm.
or whatever. And that's tough as a victim, because if you cannot and don't feel comfortable to share with law enforcement, who are supposed to protect and serve,
Hmm.
who are you going to turn to? You know, because many times you're not going to go to your family. You're not, for being ashamed
Hmm.
or being judged. And I'm talking long time ago. It was not, well, I'm not going to say a couple of decades ago, which
Yeah.
is different from now than
Mm.
it was back then.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you look back then, it was a situation where it was your problem, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
was your, you
Yeah.
know, and you had to deal with it. So yeah, and to Iris, what she was saying, I love the fact when you say your story of your leave celebration of leaving. Okay, I know the exact day that I left. My daughter, who is now 35, she was 3 months old
Wow.
when I left.
Hmm.
And I had to because I refused to not only allow my children to be raised in that environment, but I have to be honest and very transparent. I
Hmm.
told myself at that point, if I was battered any more by this man in my mind, and I'm going to be honest, I told myself that I was going to kill him. Okay? I'm going to be honest. And then I had to say, if I do that, who's going to have my children?
Mm-hmm.
So I had to make the decision to not only save myself, but to get my children out of that situation so that I'm locked up and then somebody else have my kids. So
Right.
it's not an easy situation to deal with because there's so many components to it.
Indeed, it is not an easy situation, and having talked to not only you ladies but other victims, survivors of domestic violence, I know there's financial consideration, there's mental, emotional considerations, your children, you're thinking about all of that, and so it's not an easy decision to come to. And while folks may say just get out or just leave, it's really not as simple as all of that. All right.
Yeah.
So I got a couple folks that I want to acknowledge. I see you, Roz. Yes, I got the homecoming here. Thank you for being here. And my sister Shayla is on. MK said, Dr. Iris, I love how you don't allow the abuser to get any notoriety. I love how you only refer to him as the abuser. You're in control. I love how you took your control back. So I both want to hear from both of you on that. Do you feel like you have control, or that you had to, gain your control back of yourself, the situation, and maybe not the situation, but of yourself?
Yes, I can definitely say that.
Hmm.
That's one of the reasons why I chose to name the blog Now I Can Wear Pink. That's why I wear pink. That's why I wear colors.
Hmm.
The abuser that I dealt with, he was very controlling, even to the point of telling me what I could and could not wear. And I was not even aware of it until I left the relationship. And I realized it broke my heart to realize I was wearing oversized clothing to cover up my body.
Hmm.
Because if someone even as much as looked at me, I had a problem to deal with the abuser.
Hmm.
And although I entered that relationship as a very young woman who would wear pink and all these bright colors, over time, I stopped. I remember once he told me, well, successful women, they wear blue, brown, and black. And so my wardrobe, as you can imagine, was very drab and it was very depressing and very sad. And honestly, I dressed probably like somebody 30 years, 40 years older than I am now. And that's kind of sad because our fashion is a way that we express ourselves. It is a way that we control how we move in the world. And so for me, I truly feel like, yes, I have, even if, I mean, just starting from something as simple as what I wear or how I do my hair, even. That was another thing. He criticized my hair. Y'all can tell I'm natural. I have locks now. I would have never had the courage to get locks with him because he always criticized my natural hair. It looked undone, it looked too frizzy, or something was wrong with it. And so, even small things like how I presented myself in the world was controlled. And so, yes, I have taken my control back and I wear whatever color I want, as loud as those colors are. I wear my earrings as big as I want. So,
Yes.
yes.
Yes. Yes. Awesome.
I agree. You have to take your control back. However, it does not happen when you leave.
Mm,
Okay. You leave, but your mental state of being is nowhere near where you're trying to go and where
gotcha.
you want to be. And it takes sometimes years. I know for me, it took years for me to really have my mental control. Even
Mm,
physical control for me was gone because I was no longer there. But you're
mm,
still trapped mentally for such a long period of time until you have to really get past the process. And there's a process. It's almost feel like you've escaped, but
mm-hmm.
you're still trapped because your brain is trapped. And it was the same thing, the control. It's something about the control and perpetrator. What happened once many perpetrators start to lose their control,
Mm-hmm.
many times the abuse gets more severe because
Mm,
it is to maintain a control
right.
and, and to place that fear. So you are in fear. And the thing about it is they know this and then they use that fear. It's like reverse psychology, I
Mm-hmm.
did this because you did this. But if you wouldn't do this, then I wouldn't have had. But it's like flipping it to make you're the reason why
Mm-hmm.
doing this.
Right.
Okay. And it's all a mind game. But at the time, you're not really thinking that that's what it is because you're dealing with so many emotional things going on in your head.
Right.
But it took me, and I'm going to, about, I would say, a good 7, 8 years before I really, because you have to get past the resentment that you feel for this person
Mm-hmm.
who has done this to you. And you can't move forward in any situation. You
Mm,
have to give that person who abused you in order to be able to move forward.
mm-hmm.
And until you forgive them, you're still really mentally trapped.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Yeah, thank you for sharing that as well. I can't even imagine. I cannot even imagine. So we are a little more than halfway through our conversation. So for those of you who are just joining us, I am on with Dr. Iris Pendleton and Tangela Chipman, and we're talking about professional Black women and domestic violence. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so both my guests have lived experience with domestic violence and abusers who were actually the fathers of their children. And
Yes.
so, which, you know, it definitely is not an easy task because, of course, you want to try to encourage your children to have a relationship with their father, but that's got to be challenging when they are abusing you or, not treating you very well. So we have a few folks that have joined us. Dr. Monica, thank you for being here. She said, very important topic. Thank you. And we got Susan tuning in from Hampton, Virginia. Thank you for being here. God first, Brittany said, I pray that God removes me from this abusive relationship. I was mentally gone years ago, but I am still here. Lord have mercy. Yes, absolutely, Brittany. And there is assistance out there for folks who need it. So, I think really one of the most important things that I want folks to get out of this show, the message that I want them to get is that you're not alone and that there is support out there. There is help out there for you. And while in Tangela, maybe you can speak to this in terms of law enforcement. I know that, and I don't know what it's like now, but it seems like years ago, like law enforcement didn't really like to get too involved in domestic situations, right?
That is true.
Because I know it's like, one person's word against the other. And maybe, I guess at best, there'd be like okay, somebody has to leave the premises in terms of having some type of cooling off situation. But it gets very tricky. So can you talk from a law enforcement standpoint, how maybe domestic calls are handled, and how you as law enforcement, um and as with lived experience in domestic violence, like how did you manage those calls that came in?
Well, many years ago, like I keep saying, they could no report a domestic violence call if an
Mhm,
officer responded. However, and we bring light to the dilemma of and I'll just, the OJ situation
mhm,
is what changed a lot of things when it came to domestic violence, believe it or not. It did. It brought shined a lot of light. But domestic violence and officers now, they have a requirement. The department, the standard operating procedures, and I can speak for Miami-Dade, if
mhm,
an officer responds to a domestic violence situation, even if it's just a simple argument, it does not have to be anything physical, they are required to write a police report.
mm,
Okay? It does not have to be physical because you respond. And the purpose of that is documentation. Because if something is not documented, really, it never really happened. We know
mm,
that. Documentation is important. So if you have a documentation of an incident, and then you go back and it shows a pattern. And not only that, it shows that you've been to this residence before,
mhm.
and you have to make a report. Now, law enforcement, I cannot speak for every officer.
Right.
Okay. I can say what they are required to do,
Mhm,
required to give a domestic violence pamphlet to that victim.
mhm,
They are required to fill out the lethality report, which is a report that have different levels. And if certain levels fit, then they determine different elements as far as when to pursue it and things of that nature. However, what we have to understand as a victim in a misdemeanor domestic violence case,
mhm,
officers can still make an arrest on a misdemeanor case. They
mm,
don't does not have to be a felony when many incidents, if it did not happen, if the incident didn't happen in the presence of an officer, a case, they can't make an arrest. It just depends. But on domestic violence, they can. They don't have to be present. It can be a misdemeanor case, long as the elements are there, long as it fits the criteria. They have to do something.
mm.
Okay, should do something.
Gotcha.
Now, do they all the time? Not always. And that's when we have those victims who kind of fall in between. But you have to request it. You, as a victim, you have to say, I want a report written.
Okay,
Okay. And they cannot deny you to say, because if they're there on a domestic, they're supposed to write a report.
got it.
Yeah.
So I want to shift the conversation to really the meat of our talk, which is about professional Black women. Do you think that, Black women's cries for help sometimes um, are discounted, or aren't taken as serious?
Um,
Go ahead, Iris.
I would say I would say they're discounted. So I can remember when I had to go to a court hearing for a domestic violence injunction. So I got a temporary injunction to keep the abuser from coming within a certain distance of me. And that was temporary
Mhm,
after the strangulation incident. But then I had to go before a judge to try to get the permanent injunction. And I think there are stereotypes about Black women, and in the courtroom, my abuser said some things that triggered those stereotypes. Like we've all heard the angry Black woman. So
mm,
that stereotype was unfortunately used against me. And the people who were in the situation of judging the situation,
mm,
in that moment, I felt like they were maybe giving into that stereotype. And also, my abuser, he chose an attorney
mm,
who used those stereotypes. So my abuser actually accused me of attacking him. And so, yes, this is so, and with the stereotypes that unfortunately exist about Black women, it created a situation where I was defending myself in the courtroom. And honestly, I can relate to what you said, Tangela, where you said mentally it can take you some time to get to a better place. Well, at the time that I was trying to defend myself in court about this situation, mentally I was not in a good place. Like, this
Mhm.
was probably 2 months after I had left. So I was still I was pretty distressed at that point. And so I did not feel like my cries for help were taken seriously.
Mm.
I did not get a permanent injunction. And I will say, a part of it is for the reason that I think a lot of people may struggle with that. Sometimes we're reluctant to call the police
Mm.
because, as African Americans, there are sometimes some negative narratives around getting law enforcement involved.
Mm.
And that is very unfortunate. But in my case, I didn't necessarily have a paper trail
Yeah.
of those police reports to support me. So I think something that I would have done differently that may have helped my situation is I wish I had called law enforcement more, because when you show up to court and you've got these stereotypes that are being used against you, the people in that courtroom, they don't know you from anybody else. And so having that paper trail from law enforcement, I feel like could have strengthened my case.
Gotcha.
And I agree. It does make you feel a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Now they have victim service coordinators that are part of domestic violence intervention, when before they were really not a part of the court system that much with domestic violence. But I can recall going to get a restraining order as well. I can recall going to get a restraining, and you're there. Now you got to remember, you're in a domestic violence situation. You're nervous, you're scared, you're timid, all of these things, and you go to a place where you're supposed to be getting help, and the helpers make you feel that something is wrong with you. I mean, it's just very cold. It was a very cold situation. You fill out these papers and then you go before the judge. I got a temporary injunction, like Iris said. And then when I went back for the permanent, it took me several times
Mm.
before I was able to get the permanent injunction, even though I was still dealing with the domestic violence situation. And
Mm-hmm.
I was stalked before the stalking statute ever came out.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Yes. I when I finally did leave, and I have to share this, it's so important. I remember getting called. He would say, "I saw you. I could have killed you today if I wanted to. I saw you. You went to the cleaners, you went to Winn Dixie, you went here." Now remember, I never saw this man anywhere of any of these places. Okay, but he can tell me everywhere I had gone.
Mm.
You go to court and you try to get an injunction and all of these things, and then you have this person come in court to say, well, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. And then you have a judge who's sitting there listening to case after case after case, and it's like you have no backing. So imagine dealing with that. You have no backing. How are you going to come out of that courtroom feeling totally humiliated, trying to get help, and then totally still afraid because of the system, what's going on, and the situation that you're dealing with? So it's a lot that comes with it. And like I say, we as Black women, or women in general, we have to learn how to support each other and have to be there for each other, as opposed to being so judgmental, because that stops a lot of people from coming forth.
Indeed. So I'm glad you said that in terms of the judgmental piece, because I think that is a lot of the root of this. And then, so I'm gonna say this, and it's probably not gonna sound all that great, but I feel like the pool of Black men, eligible Black men for Black women is very small. And so I think sometimes that we may put up with a lot um, because we don't want to be alone. Um, and I think, in particular, professional Black women, Black women who are degree, Black women who, have something to lose, if you will. And not that all Black women don't have anything to lose, but they have some means about themselves, right? And so maybe you put up with certain behaviors because, again, you want that companionship, you don't want to be alone. And, you know, it's just, it just is what it is. And so I think that both of you have stated, there are now some things that are in place that maybe weren't in place, especially Tangela, when you had your lived experience. And you, Iris, talked about, wishing you had maybe, done more calling to law enforcement to build up that report and that paperwork so that there would be a history, a recorded history of this repeat offender behavior, right? But also, Tangela, in terms of you mentioning, we got to not be so judgmental, right? And we got to, if somebody is saying that they have a need, we need to take that serious and lean into that and ask people, how can I support you? Right. So talk to me about maybe times that you wanted to get some help or had what appeared to you, what may have appeared to you as a crowd for help, but you didn't really get the help that you needed.
Yes.
Mhm.
For me, Nicole, you're asking me?
Both of
Okay.
you, yeah. You
Yes.
could catch up.
Okay. Yes, I did. And you cry out for help. At the time, b- believe it or not, it had a lot to do with the Christian circle.
Yeah.
You got to remember, and have to be very careful. The Christian circle, you're not supposed to leave your husband back then. No, you're supposed to stay. You're supposed to be there. And I often say that, yeah, God say to death do you part, but he didn't literally mean until death do you part, you
Mm,
know? And I was, when I tried to go for it, when those people who were Christians, no, you can't, you're not supposed to leave. God say you're supposed to stay with your husband and these types of things. So imagine if you're young, confused, and you're trying to seek out help, but the people that you seek out help with are telling you you need to stay. They're not hearing the abuse.
mhm.
Okay. And they knew about it because if you have visible injuries, it's clear.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Iris.
So, yeah, I think the faith-based part is definitely really hard, and I think that was a piece that I struggled with as well, because again, the abuser, was having some very difficult life circumstances, and so
Mhm.
I can remember when I left, that was one of the things that certain individuals kept reminding me of. This person's doing really bad. Why did you leave this person? This
Mhm.
isn't fair to them. And
Mm,
so that judgmental piece, like when you're trying to get yourself safe, but on the other hand, you have people who are so concerned about the needs of the abuser. That's really tough. Another thing that I experienced, I know a lot of workplaces have domestic violence leave, and my workplace did. And I remember one time in particular, there was a very bad physical attack. The abuser had hit me in the face so hard that he broke my glasses. And I'm kind of blind as a bat. I need my glasses, so I couldn't go to work the next day. And I remember calling into work and I felt awful because I had to call in. I had to say I could not come in. And the supervisor that I had at the time, I was not comfortable with telling that person what happened because unfortunately, some people they don't they have that judgment. And I felt that that negative judgment would have been there. So unfortunately, I did not feel comfortable with even telling my workplace superiors that, hey, I'm going through this situation. And so as a result, um, I just had to take the day off and I just had to look like a lazy person that just called in at the last minute. And
Wow.
so I think that happens. You know, there are statistics about the number of work days lost for domestic violence survivors and victims because I mean, I think sometimes we're not comfortable when we feel like we're going to be negatively judged.
Indeed. I know that at least my thought is, should I say, I'm not gonna say I know that, but my thought is that we take our jobs very seriously, and you don't want to appear to be lazy or slacker, or attendance is important, right? You want your attendance record to be stellar, and only be absent in case of an emergency. And a lot of times that's reserved for our children, right? Our children being ill or something that we have to tend to with them at school, or something or another like that. So could definitely see how that could be a stressful situation in many regards. So I just want to bring up Ozzy's comment, which he said, "The devil is a liar, run for the hills. Your life means more and has more value." And he also said that he admires your resilience, ladies. And Dr. Kendra Mitchell said she echoes Ozzy's admiration, and I do as well. I'm so just very um, proud of you both for coming forth, sharing your story, and just allowing us to have this conversation. And MK said, "Misery loves company." I'm sure most of those women were being abused as well. So I want to give you all an opportunity to just give some remarks as it relates to, if you could, tell your younger self something, um, to kind of change your mind or your mindset. What advice would you give to your younger self, about, you know, your lived experience?
I think for me, I actually went, so I did go to counseling.
Okay.
And I think that's so important to the healing process to find a good counselor. And one of my assignments she gave me was to write a letter to my 19-year-old self.
Mm,
And it was a very beautiful letter. And I remember telling my 19-year-old self that she needed to know her value and that
mm,
I wanted her to look in the mirror every day and tell herself that she's beautiful. I wanted her to believe what God says about her. And I feel like all of those things that I told her, my 19-year-old self, were reminders of the importance of self love and the importance of valuing yourself like our Creator values us. Because when you have love for yourself and when you see yourself like our God sees us, it's going to be really difficult for you to allow someone to treat you that way. So I had to recognize over time that some of the reasons why I stayed so long is because unfortunately I did not value and love myself as I
mm.
should have. So I would tell that 19-year-old to love yourself.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you for sharing that. And Miss
And
Tangela.
I believe for me, Iris hit it on the point of loving yourself. Okay. When you know your value, I would tell my 19-year self, I would write a letter to understand my value and my worth. Because when you understand your value and your worth, you're not going to allow yourself to be treated or stay in a type of situation that you know that is unhealthy for you,
Mm-hmm.
because it definitely is an unhealthy situation. And as a writing that letter, that would carry you until now, today. For me, right now, I know my value and my worth. So I would never allow, even in a relationship, you can't even talk to me a certain way right now. Okay. And that's what has allowed me to get past it. And I have to add this before we to end it. I know that I'm past it because I can talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because at some point earlier, I was not, I could never talk about it like this, be calm and be able to share. It was too emotional. So when you get to this point, you can say, thank you, Lord. You know what? I'm okay. I can talk about it. I can share. And I think that's the importance for me being able to share my experience because it's a lot. It's a lot out there and it's a lot needs to be told pertaining to it.
Indeed. Well, thank you also for sharing that. So I definitely am hearing a resounding love yourself, understand your value and your worth. And I know at 19, heck, I know when I was 19, I did not understand my value and my worth. And so I think for those young people who may watch this, that may be watching now or may watch later, we can't say that enough. Know your value, know your worth, know that you should not be mistreated. You should not be abused mentally, physically, emotionally, financially. And, you know, that there is help out there for you. So I'm going to give you ladies an opportunity to give some closing remarks, although I know that, listen, the remarks you gave just now are really wonderful, but give some closing remarks. And also, if you want folks to connect with you, let them know how they can do that. So we're going to start with you, Tangela.
You can reach me at T Chipman at stbusinessconsulting.com. I'll say it again, T Chipman at stbusinessconsulting.com. But what I like to say to the listeners is that be vigilant, okay? Look, when you see something, say something. There's resources out there. Reach out, help someone. It may take you more than one time to be able to reach that person. But I want the victims to also know that, like you said, they're not alone. They're not alone. This is something that is not uncommon. It's very common. There's nothing to be ashamed about. There's nothing to feel less fortunate about when this situation happens. Remember, you are a victim. That's why it's called a victim, because of the situation that you are in. And the only way you can get help is to be able to reach out to the resources that are available.
Indeed. All right. Thank you so much for sharing that, Tangela. And I'm going to put up the domestic violence hotline number in just a moment, but we're going to give Dr. Iris an opportunity to give some closing remarks and tell how folks can connect with you.
Okay, just some of my closing remarks. As we get ready to go into the holiday season, I always like to remind people relationship goals are not clothes, cars, or matching Christmas PJs.
Mm,
I think sometimes we have these situations where we see these picture perfect families and we assume that, oh, this family is perfect. What you see on the outside is not an indication of how well a relationship is doing. And so, just to kind of echo what Tangela said, if you see something, say something. If you hear somebody being talked to in a way that is not kind or pleasant, or if you notice some things that just don't seem right, even if you just reach out to that person who may be being abused and just ask if they're all right, or just ask if they need someone to talk to. It's not that you're looking to try to fix anything, but you're just being that listening ear.
mm,
I also want to say that if you are being abused, you are not shameful. The domestic violence and the abuse is the thing that is shameful, not you. You don't have anything to be ashamed of, and you've done nothing wrong. And then finally, domestic violence thrives in silence. So as long as people stay quiet, as long as people continue to wear their nice clothes and drive their nice cars and get abused, other people just assume that everything's okay. So I think those of us who have gone through this lived experience and who have healed to the point where we can share, we have to share because someone else's life might literally depend on us telling our story. And so I'll continue to do that through Now I Can Wear Pink. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Now I Can Wear Pink or on the website, nowicanwearpink.com. And I'm so excited. I recently got some Now I Can Wear Pink earrings.
Nice, 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 nice. Love all of that. Thank you so much for sharing. Um, we also want to put up the National Domestic Violence Hotline, which is this 800 number on the screen right now. And then locally here in Tallahassee, 211 Big Ben is a clearinghouse of information. That's another resource. So I'm sure there are other resources in your area. If you're not in the Tallahassee area, we also have the Refuge House here in Tallahassee. And so definitely encouraging folks to reach out if there is a need. But that domestic violence hotline is available 24/7, 365. All right, we do have a few more comments. So we got MK said, Amen. Miss Doris is on. Awesome conversation. Thank you for being here. Princess, thank you, ladies. I think Ish is saying this. Thank you, Ish. Oh, here he is. This is extremely timely combo. I learned a lot. Thank you, ladies, for your insight and candor. Yes. And then Kendra, Dr. K, maybe a step before this is to surround yourself with people who can be healthy mirrors of your value until you grow into self-love. Beautiful conversation. I love that idea, Dr. K. Thank you for sharing it. All right. So, yeah, this has been, I know it's a heavy conversation, but it is a very needful conversation. And again, we are bringing, we're highlighting Black women specifically, professional Black women, because I think, all too often folks think that they have it all together, right? And sometimes they don't. And so don't overlook them just because you think they have it all together, just because of this persona of, or this stereotype of, you know, angry Black woman or bossy woman, and all of these things, know it all. No, she is vulnerable. She is a victim sometimes. She just, again, doesn't have it all together. So let's lean in, let's be a listening ear, and let's support them. Let's support them. Let's support them. Again, for those of you who are new to the platform, I invite you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are on Mondays and Wednesdays at 8:30, and the focus is primarily on mental health and wellness in Black and Brown communities. So I want to thank my guests. You all were wonderful. You both were wonderful in sharing your story. And y'all connect with them, follow them, and let's keep this conversation going. I know Domestic Violence Awareness Month is in October, but domestic violence happens throughout the year. And so let's keep the conversation going. All right. All right. Any closing remarks, ladies? I know I gave y'all any last thing.
The only thing I like to add is that we just tipped the ice just a
We
smidgen.
did. We did. Which
It's
means y'all need to come back.
so much stuff that we need to expound on pertaining to this. It's just amazing. So we need to.
We do. We need to come back. So we will make that happen. We will make that happen. All right. Let's see. Ozzy said, good food that will produce good fruits. Excellent conversation tonight. Thank you, Ozzy. And Susan, great conversation and much needed indeed. Thank you so much. All right, good people. You all have a great rest of the evening, rest of the week. Happy homecoming, FAMU. I'll see y'all out in these homecoming. And we'll see y'all next time. Bye.
Good night.